Welcome to this meeting of the Mid Suffolk District Council Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Sarah Mansell and I will be chairing the committee this evening. Apologies for my delay, but I got held up by the NHS. May I first all remind you of some domestic arrangements. Please ensure that microphones are turned off when not in use. If you are attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. Please ensure your mobile phones are on silent or switched off and that your laptops are switched to silent. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be recorded, except where there are confidential or exempt items. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. If you intend to do so, please could you inform the committee clerk. If you hear the fire alarm, leave the building immediately via a fire exit and make your way to the assembly point at Ipswich Town Football Ground. Follow the signs directing you to the fire exits. Do not re-enter the building until told it is safe to do so. Some introductions. On the front row on my left, we have the Chief Planning Officer, Phil Isbell, and we have the Case Officer, Avril Gowdy. Behind them, we have Legal Advisor Ian Dupre. We have Governance Officers Alicia Norman and Beth Webb, and on my right are the members who will be making the decision today. Can I move to the agenda, please? Apologies for absence and substitution.
Thank you, Chair. We have one apology this evening from Councillor Patchett with Councillor Overett substituting. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2, to receive declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other registrable or non-registrable interests by members. Are there any interests to declare? Thank you. Item number 3, declarations of lobbying. No, thank you. Item number 4, declaration of personal site visits. Any to declare? Thank you. Item number 5, MPL 2403, confirmation of the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 5th of June 2024. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? Thank you. So could I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Hedingham and Councillor Warboys, you're seconding. The Governance Officer will now conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that should now be in progress for you on ModGov. Thank you, Chair. That is 7 votes for and 1 abstention, so those are carried.
Thank you. They will be signed at the end of the meeting. Item number 6, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. So we move to the main business of the meeting. Item number 7, the schedule of planning applications. So first of all, we have item 7A, which is DC 24-01153, Gateway 14, 1600, land between the A1120 and A14 at Creating St Peter, Stowmarket, Suffolk. And I will invite the Case Officer, Avril Gowdy, to introduce the application to committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. So yeah, the application before us today is DC 24-01153, and it's for reserve matters for appearance, landscaping, layout and scale for plot 1600 at Gateway 14 in Stowmarket. And just as a reminder that this presentation is purely for illustrative purposes and will illustrate some of the key points but doesn't supersede the committee report. I just want to do a quick recap of the hybrid permission. So here you can see the application site highlighted in red, and then you've got areas shown in a yellow colour and a blue colour. So the blue is the highway network within the development alongside the structural landscaping. And then the yellow indicates the plots which are to come forward that had outline planning permission with access considered, and then obviously we have reserve matters today. This is a most up-to-date aerial image that we have, which shows plot 4000, the range built. This is, I think it's about 2 months old now, and they have fitted out and started operation on the site. And just for some context, so in May, we considered the application at plot 2000. We've got later today the application for 1900, and the application before us at the moment is in this area indicated in red. And just to give this is the indicative site layout that was submitted at outline stage, and I've just highlighted in red the plot that we've got the reserve matters for today. Moving on to site and constraints. So this is the application site. It's in the easternmost parcel of land on the development, forming part of plot 1000. It measures approximately 1.54 hectares. So you can see on that plan plot 4000, obviously as that's now been built. And just for some context, we've got the A14 to the north, Cedars Park, Tesco's, Creating St Peter, Clamp Farm Barns, and then the A1120. And these are some aerials submitted with the application. Obviously they're not the most up-to-date as they don't show plot 4000 on there, but gives, again, some more context to the location. And then in terms of constraints map, there aren't any constraints affecting the site. Obviously it is outside the settlement boundary, but does have outline planning permission. And just wanted to briefly touch on the tenant, and I'm sure the agent is here today, they can give some more detail, but the plot and unit has been designed to meet the needs of Bowder, who are a manufacturing company that manufacture building construction materials, including green and blue roofs. They currently operate a facility in Ipswich, and it's my understanding that Bowder are repurposing and refurbishing their existing building in Ipswich, in which their distribution element would be relocated to Gateway 14. This expansion and job creation is envisaged across both locations at approximately 35 jobs. And just to note that the proposal is for, as I said, the B8 storage and distribution. So moving on to the first reserve matter, layout. So I've highlighted here the split between the B8 warehouse in red, the 2-storey office, which is attached to the north in green, and then a hazardous store, which is attached to the south. So the building would total 250 square metres, and 24% of the site would comprise soft landscaping. And just looking at the comparison between the illustrative master plan submitted to outline and then the updated master plan we've got to the reserve matters, because you'll note some changes. So the key ones are to note the reorientation of the building, the location of the service yard and car park, that this takes a smaller plot size than envisaged, and the loss redistribution of on-plot landscaping. So it's understood that these amendments have been driven by the site topography, which slopes downwards on an eastern trajectory in the corner. The revised orientation allows the site to work better with the topography, minimising the amount of ground remodelling required, meaning the building can sit at a lower ground level. And just a recap of the site connectivity, you've got the Toucan crossing, which is installed and operational on the A1120, the stopping up of Mill Lane, which has occurred, and you've got a new footpath connection to Gipping Valley Way to the south. And then moving on to parking and EV, so we've got 37 car parking spaces. We've got 8 active electric vehicle charging, and then a further 18 which are to be provided above the standards with the infrastructure in place for future connectivity. All of the parking, EV and cycle storage is compliant with Suffolk parking guidance. And just moving to lorry parking, so you can see on this western boundary you've got 16 lorry parking spaces. As we've seen on other plots, it's possible that this area might also double up to be used for container and external storage. At the moment there isn't a proposal as such for this, but we're recommending a condition for a container and external storage management plan to contain details of the location and storage heights of this storage. Just moving on to cycle storage, so you can see that the cycle store is located adjacent to the vehicular and pedestrian access. Also, there is proposal for shower and locker facilities within the office building, as we've seen on the other plots that have come forward, and specific details related to that are subject to condition. And there is also, it's not showing, hang on, oh there we go, visitor parking adjacent to the entrance in the form of Sheffield stands. In terms of the staff amenity area, we have a staff amenity area adjacent to the main entrance. So I've just taken a snippet from the landscaping plan so you can see some more detail of it. It would be finished with bulb, shrub and hedge planting, as well as a number of picnic benches and backrest seats for employees to use. Just in terms of access strategy, so you can see there's 2 accesses for this unit. Both come off Gosling Avenue. The northern access would be used for cars and also pedestrians and cycles, and then the southern access would be used for HGVs. And then just sort of for information, a non-material amendment application was submitted and approved to extend Gosling Avenue. You'll see from the photos that the public footpath has originally been installed in this location. I haven't actually mentioned it, but you can see along here, so this boundary, this is the public footpath, and you'll see that better in photos. But so, yeah, we've approved an extension to this roadway to connect the plot to Gosling Avenue. The route of the footpath is unobstructed, so I'll just flash it up here. So essentially it will run to the south of this highway, and you can see a dropped curb crossing here, so cyclists and pedestrians can cross to then either take the footpath or enter the site. And then moving on to scale, so just a recap of the existing site levels. So plot 1600 would sit around between 40 and 45 metres AOD. And this is the parameters plan that was submitted at outline stage. So it secures the maximum building height at AOD for this part of plot 1000 as 61 metres above ordnance datum. And just to note that condition 11 of the outline secures the building height at 21 metres high. And then just the cut and fill strategy that's been submitted with the application. So you can see that soil from the west of the site will be used to fill the east of the site to create a level site. And there is an overall requirement for fill, and that will come from the on-site borrow pit. Because you might recall that on 4000 and 2000 there was excess cut, so that's what's being used on this plot. And then just comparing levels between the outline and the reserve matters. So I've just highlighted these by colour. So you can see that the finished floor levels is within scope, or if not slightly lower than envisaged. Same with the maximum building height, the eaves height is also a lot lower than envisaged, as well as the maximum building height. And there's just a section at the bottom there. You can see the red dashed line at the top indicates how high the building could have been under the parameters set by the outline consent. And then here's just some sections again showing the building, including the structural landscaping to the boundaries. And then moving on to appearance. So the proposed building would have a barrel vaulted roof to match the roof form that we've got on plots 2000 and 4000. The proposed materials include metal cladding, concrete panels, and steel and aluminium windows and doors. The cladding would be arranged in vertical bands of differing widths and complementary colours and tones. The proposed colour palette includes a variety of blues and greys to reflect the colours of the horizon, built form and sky. And then just the entrance detail here. As on 2000 and 4000, we've got the lighter coloured top of the building, which the effect is to, well, it's hoped that it will reduce the perceived height of the building, and in combination with the vertical cladding, so it will blend into the sky. And you can also see here the flat roof here, which is the hazardous store. And just moving on to some of the details. So this is the entrance detail. You can see there's a difference between the two cladding options. So here, sort of 1, 2, and 3, which you can see here, have the cladding that same type of cladding that we've approved on previous plots. And then to define the entrance, we've got vertical flat panels. And again, I mean, you have seen these before, but I just thought it'd be useful. So you've got, the vertical trapezoidal cladding here. And then, the cladding under the eaves. And then, roof cladding. These are all the same as what we've got on 4000 and 2000. You've got the concrete panels around the loading bays and dock levelers. And then just moving to the floor plan. So the proposed building has a depth of 45 metres and a length of 95 metres. So you can see here, the hazardous store and the office. And then moving on to the first floor, so the office does span, it's a 2-storey office. And then just in terms of the office detail, as you can see how it might be split up. And you can also note here the shower and locker facilities for those that might choose active travel. And then moving on to the roof plan, so you can see the barrel vaulted roof and some solar PV, and just to note that the whole extent of the roof has been designed to accommodate further PV installation should the infrastructure become available to do so. And then moving on to colours, so I've included snippets of the RAL colours here just so you can see what they might look like. So the application was accompanied by an environmental colour analysis, and that illustrates that the views are made up of landscape, horizon, built form and sky, with the most significant portion of the visual setting of the building being sky. Just to note that all of the colours have been used on plot 4000 and 2000, with the exception of the orange, which is the tenant's corporate colour. And then just compliance with the design code, which is secured by condition. That's the same as what we've had on 4000 and 2000 in terms of that compliance. And this is a CGI drawn up of, sort of taken from the end of Gosling Avenue, looking towards the corner of the building. And you can see the service yard and vehicular access entrance here. And then one taken slightly further up Gosling Avenue, so you can see the structural landscaping either side. You can see you get an oblique view of the service yard and likely associated HGV movements. Obviously, this isn't up to date in terms of the fact further units would occupy the surrounding spaces. And then just to briefly touch on the energy and sustainability features, again, very similar to what we've had on other units to date. So we've got a 40 kilowatt peak roof-mounted solar PV. So just to note, the on-site renewable energy technologies are predicted to achieve reductions in both regulated and unregulated on-site energy at 22.5%. In terms of external work finishes, these are again very similar to what we've got on previous plots, and I'll just go into some of the detail here. So we've got a 2.4 metre high weld mesh fence around the service yard, which I will just cover on a slide in a second. And then we've got brindle concrete block paviours. We've also got yellow concrete block paviours and grey. And then you've got tarmac for the entrance. And then, yeah, just in terms of those fences, so the blue, I'll just try and mark it out here. So the blue round here is to be a 2.4 metre high weld mesh fence, which you can see up here. And there would also be an Armco barrier, post and rail, just at the back of the service yard here. But other than that, and the entrance gate here, there's no other proposal for boundary treatment. And just moving on to landscaping. So this is the proposed landscaping submitted with the application. The red dashed line around the plot, obviously everything inside that is the on-plot landscaping subject to this application. They've also shown the structural landscaping on here to the south and eastern boundary. So the proposed landscaping strategy includes ornamental and native trees and shrubs, native hedges along the primary routes, a wildflower meadow, amongst other things. The proposed landscaping is predominantly around the building, car parking and service yard, and this will act to soften the visual impact of the building. And I've included the key, but I appreciate it's quite small to read. And just to note that biodiversity net gain is achieved at 0.61%, and this is being provided from the structural landscaping adjacent to the site to the east and southern boundaries. And as required by condition, 24% of the plot, it's in excess of 20% is what the condition requires, and they're providing 24% of this plot as soft landscaping. And then just a reminder of the structural landscaping. So you can see here that 2 and I think it says 5 wetland and open space link are adjacent to the site. And from my site visits, I just took some photos of this structural landscaping that has now been put in, albeit appreciate it's quite small currently, but obviously it will take some time to establish, but that's in place. And then just some of the updated LVIA views. So this is taken from towards Creting St Peter and sort of the A14 flyover. So this is present day. And then I've included the one for the 15-year visualisation, so you can make out the roof of 1600 here. And then looking, so this one's taken to the south down towards sort of the railway and the River Gipping, looking up towards Clamp Farm, Barnes. This isn't updated to include the range on it, but I believe the next slide you might be able to make out. So you can just about see the roof of plot 4000 here, and likewise you can just about see the roof of 1600 here. And then just briefly moving on to photos. So this is view from Gosling Avenue facing southeast down. So essentially the site is at the end, would be down here. And you can see what I mean. So this is the footpath that has been installed but will now be replaced with roadway to connect to the site. So it will essentially stop at the end. The footway will become the footway adjacent to the highway rather than this defined path. And then this is the view from the current end of Gosling Avenue. Obviously, again, that will extend further down here to provide access to this site that's facing southeast. Then from the public footpath facing northeast, you can just about make out a lorry on the A14 here. And structural landscapings are taken from sort of the edge of Gateway 14, facing south, and again facing southwest. That faces more directly towards the application site. And then you've got some of the drainage infrastructure that's been put in adjacent to the structural landscaping on this boundary. And again, looking southwest, sort of up the site. And this is taken from the corner of the site facing west, and you obviously can see the corner with the structural landscaping planting. And again, this is facing south, so you can see the structural landscaping there as well. And facing southeast from the public footpath. And yeah, that's the end of the photo. So the recommendation is to approve reserve matters with conditions as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from members? Councillor Warboys. Con.
Thank you. Found one. I think some congratulations on the biodiversity net gain there. There's some questions raised about a tree, T36. I think it's on slide 48, and I think the questions were regarding the sort of protection of the root structure, and whether that's affected by this sort of levelling out of the site, because there's substantial movements of soil around the site.
Yeah, so we've had confirmation from the agent that there'll be no changes to the levels within the root protection area that would affect the tree.
Okay, and could I have one more? Yeah. And there was another sort of from Clump Farm about the lighting levels, and whether they're sort of as low as they could be. There were sort of concerns raised that this would be very disruptive in this area. For my mind, it's sort of on the edge of an urban area, but it's still in the open countryside. So whether that's actually going to be.
I haven't included the details of the lighting, mainly because it is subject to a separate condition on the outline. We can ask the agent possibly, he might have some details of the lighting levels. Yeah.
So maybe hold that question until we get the agent speaking.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else got any questions? Councillor Elkin.
Thank you, Chair. It was just on, I think it's section 8.10, it mentioned that the sort of design advisors were, it says, remained concerned about a particular colour that was being used on the top of the building. And they said it wouldn't be effective at reducing the visual impact and in fact would accentuate it. I think it's on page 35. I just wondered if you could say a bit more about that.
Yes. Yeah, so I think they've raised concerns with the colour oyster, which is for the clerestory band sort of under the eaves of the building. We have approved that on plot 2000, that specific colour. And I think, we're careful that this approach with the coloured eaves, the lighter coloured eaves, the general effect of what it's trying to achieve, obviously we want to be consistent across the development. You can see from the LVIA that it might be that in the 15 years' time when all the structural landscaping has established that, that upper portion of the building and the roof may be visible, but I don't think it was ever the intention that you wouldn't be able to see these buildings from surrounding areas. So, yeah, from our point of view, I think the design consistency of keeping that general approach we think is important. So that's why we've accepted it.
Councillor Overett.
Yeah, regarding other concerns raised about the impact on Clamp Farm area, I think there were some concerns about noise during the night and whether there would be the use of tonal reversal alarms. I know that's not been addressed, so I don't know if that's even is a concern at all. And the second one was about the landscape impact. And I know the image that you showed, I think, was from the A14. I wondered what that would be like from Clamp Farm area, looking at the actual building. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just cover the noise one. So we don't yet, so operating hours are subject to a condition. Obviously, plot 4000, they're a 24-hour operator, but I don't know for Bowder what their proposed operating hours will be, so I don't know if they will be operating at night. Obviously, if they are, that's subject to condition, and we'll go through consultation with environmental health, which they'll look at the noise side of it. The landscape impact, I didn't include the LVIA pictures from Clamp Farm Barns, but I can find them if they would be useful.
Would you like them to be viewed? Do you think it's important that we see them?
I'm just noting that the objector expressed concerns, and it would be good to have those.
So maybe, yeah, if you could find them,
Yeah, I'll find
that would be helpful. Are there any other questions whilst Avril's finding those things? Councillor Lawrence and then Councillor Hardingham.
Yes, I would like to take up the comment from Creeting St Mary Parish Council concerning washing and toilet facilities for actual drivers of these vehicles and lorries. We seem to be building a large distribution centre at the whole of Gateway 14, and yet there's no facilities for lorry drivers while their vehicles are being loaded or unloaded. And I note there is comments in the section there saying it should be something considered in the future. But we've already got now 3 plots virtually approved, and without that consideration, now there's going to I believe a cafe in the renovation centre, but you don't want lorry drivers with already boiler suits and dirty clothes wandering into a place like that. So I was just wondering what provision is going to be made either here or on future similar sites in this Gateway 14 project.
That would be outside of this application site. But was there anything in the outline about facilities?
Chairman, if I can come in there, there isn't something on the outline, as I recall, about facilities. We do have a condition related to welfare and amenity areas for employees, and arguably the applicant is only expected to deal with their own staff members within the site. So my instinct is that if you want to require something particularly to be provided for the drivers associated with this use, that's reasonable and within scope. And Chairman, I might suggest you might include an informative about your expectations around that and leave that to the condition to manage. But I think we've covered it in relation to the use as it stands. In relation to wider lorry parking and wider lorry amenity issues, they are not part of this application, but I fully understand there is a level of interest in that locally. I do get that.
Thank you.
Did you want to come back, or is that a sufficient
well, I think
answer
we should
for now?
consider that as a condition, if that's if we can, for that to be considered facilities for third-party lorry drivers, or any lorry driver, to be honest. But
Well, I don't think we can condition this applicant to deal with the third-party lorry drivers. It can deal with the lorry drivers that come to its site.
Sorry, Chairman, yes, I think you have to deal with the fact that this is not, I mean, this is a facility which is gated and fenced and secure. It wouldn't be appropriate to consider that as suitable for something which is available to lorry drivers generally, and it's not designed to do that. From our perspective, this is a reasonable approach to managing the needs of drivers associated with this use. I think the question of facilities generally, that's a bigger, different question, and arguably that might be something that you might wish to put to the applicant's agents as a question for the overall site, and consideration whether that should be provided elsewhere on the site or explored. And ultimately there is some commercial reality to this, and this is not proposing to provide third-party facilities, nor would we think that's a reasonable condition. But I think nonetheless we have a condition on it which relates to welfare and amenity of employees, and our view is that is sufficient.
If I could just come back
Yeah,
on
do you want
that,
to come
please.
back, Councillor?
Sorry, when I used the term third parties, I was purely meaning drivers using this site. When I was referring to third parties, I thought they might not be lorry drivers that are particularly employees of Bowder. They're third-party haulage operators. That's what I meant by third party.
So, Chairman, if it gives the committee the comfort they're looking for, perhaps what I might suggest is that we include a provision to ensure that the condition we've got, I think it's the fourth bullet point up on our list of conditions, provision of employee welfare and amenity areas prior to first occupational use, to include welfare and amenity areas for available to lorry drivers accessing the facility, so that whatever condition comes in deals with those facilities being available, which I rather suspect they would be, but that would put it beyond doubt, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hardingham.
Thank you. Yeah, there was a point made by Creating St Peter Parish Council about screening from their point of view, and Creating St Peter is obviously in an elevated position and looks straight out over the site. I'm not entirely clear from the plans whether there is a density and height of planting on the east side of the site that will provide adequate screening. And then in relation to Councillor Warboy's point about lighting, the settlements to the east of Gateway 14 have, in the past been remarkably dark at night, and lighting on the Gateway 14 site is going to steadily erode their this feeling of being dark villages in the countryside without street lighting. I'm wondering to what extent that can be taken into account.
Thank you. Oh dear, what have you done? Oh. It's not going to doesn't want to present, does it? Can you just blow up that that image as it is now, if that's the one you want to look at?
Just the top section, so if
You zoom in a bit more, maybe. Yeah. Thank you.
So I have taken some measurements. So I believe that the top of the building is 52.450 metres above ordnance datum. And then you can see there, top of the tree canopy is anticipated to grow to a height of 49.88 metres AOD. So obviously there is a difference of 2.5 metres. Yeah, if my maths is. So yeah, and I just in terms of, so we had a look because obviously. Yeah, at the structural landscaping, and it's the applicant's case that the structural landscaping was always intended to be relied upon for mitigating the visual impacts, and because of the levels on site, the structural landscaping on that eastern boundary that faces or closest to Creating St Peter is at the top of a slope, and therefore any landscaping that would take place on the plot would be lower than the structural landscaping, and therefore they've taken the view that additional tree planting along that boundary wouldn't provide any additional visual screening.
I'm just wanted to verify that their points have been taken into account, and that we've done as much as possible to mitigate the effects.
You you might have to remind me of your other question about lighting.
It was something about lighting, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's a question of nighttime lighting, because villages to the east of Gateway 14 have in the past been remarkably dark at night. They are gradually getting lighter and lighter, and of course the lighting at night on Gateway 14 will lead to an increase in nighttime light and glare. So I'm just wondering whether that has been thought through as well. I think it's generally appreciated that dark skies are a significant well-being factor in people's quality of life.
Yeah, I think for this plot specifically, it might be useful to find out from the applicant what the hours of operating might be, and if any nighttime operating is envisaged. Don't know.
And did you say the lighting condition was part of the outline?
Yes,
so
that
whatever
will go through consultation with ecology, obviously, to look at the wildlife impacts, and highways for users of the highway, and environmental health, looking at just general residential amenity.
Did you want to come in, Phil?
Perhaps this is a question to put to the applicant.
Are there any further questions? Can I just ask, just to clarify about the fencing, there's only fencing around the service yard. There is no fencing whatsoever between the car parking area and the northern boundary of the site. There's just going to be a gate into the car park surrounded by bushes. Is that right?
Yes, that is my understanding. Yes.
Any further questions? So I will now invite the public speakers to address the committee. We don't have anyone from the Town Council or the Parish Council. We don't have an objector. We don't have a supporter. We have the agent, Hannah Walker, and Emily Atack is also available for questions. So, Hannah, over to you. You've got your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors, and thank you for your time today. As you've heard, my name's Hannah Walker, and I'm a planning consultant at Avison Young. So as you're aware, hybrid planning permission was granted in November 2021 for the Gateway 14 development to deliver a sustainable and high quality business and logistics park for the district. And the reserve matters before you today are the next step in delivering that master plan. Significant progress has been made to date, and as you've heard, the range is operational, and proposals for plot 2000 were also approved in May this year. So the reserve matters before you today is for plot 1600, which, as you've heard, is in the eastern part of the Gateway 14 master plan. The details relate to a logistics unit for Bowder, who are a leading international manufacturer of building construction materials, and they deliver a range of roofing options, including waterproofing, insulation, PV, green roofs and blue roofs. As you've heard, Bowder already have a local presence in Ipswich, and the proposed unit at Gateway 14 will help deliver their regional expansion and development plans by offering significant increased capacity to meet current and future demand. The proposed unit has been designed to meet their specifications, and if approved tonight, construction will start as soon as possible with a target completion date mid-next year. It's also worth saying that Bowder have been fully endorsed by Freeport East. Sustainability has been at the forefront of the detailed scheme design, and sustainable features have been incorporated throughout. The proposals deliver significantly in excess of the planning policy requirements and the requirements of the hybrid planning permission, and that includes BREEAM Excellent and EPC A rating. The delivery of a unit for an organisation which manufactures sustainable roofing options also aligns with the aspiration for Gateway 14 to attract investment and jobs in green sectors. It's also worth saying that the reserve matters for plot 1600 is fully in accordance with the control parameters of the approved outline planning consent. So in terms of benefits of the proposals, the proposal will deliver 35 jobs with a range of operative roles and office jobs. An employment and skills plan has been secured by condition to ensure that local training and employment initiatives are realised, including for people not currently in work. Plot 1600 will deliver a high quality building for the site, which has been discussed collaboratively with planning officers during determination and amended accordingly. The building's also been designed to meet the needs of the operator to ensure their long-term presence and investment at Gateway 14. Landscaping is proposed in excess of the 20% requirement, including biodiversity enhancements, an amenity area and a green setting for the buildings, and sustainable transport will also be provided. And we want to thank officers for a collaborative process and hope that members are also able to support this scheme today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before I ask the rest of the members if they've got any questions, can I just ask you to clarify the 35 jobs? Are they in addition to any existing workforce in the current Bowder operation, and are all those 35 jobs going to be on this site in Mid Suffolk, or is there going to be some, loss in the other part of their business?
Yeah, so the 35 jobs are all new jobs, and they will be split across this facility and Bowder's existing facility at Lansdale Road. The intention is that this facility will allow Bowder to grow and deliver that kind of increased job provision across both sites, with this site being logistics and Lansdale Road being for manufacturing.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members? If there are any of the other people with you who want to help with answering questions, maybe if you call them in, maybe they could just introduce themselves if necessary. Are there any questions from members? We have got the ones that were hanging over from the questions to members. So, Councillor Warboys, do you want to go first?
Thank you, Chair. I think we sort of flagged up the question already about the lighting plans. I note it is down there as a condition, but it's currently pending, so we don't really know any details about it.
Yeah, so obviously there is a requirement for lighting at Gateway 14 from a kind of operational and safety perspective associated with the operation of the car park and yards, as well as safety for cyclists and pedestrians. So there is lighting at the site. That is largely concentrated in the yard and car parking areas, so away from the site boundary where the building is situated. It's also worth saying that lights have been kind of hooded and shielded, and that's both for biodiversity reasons and also for light spillage reasons. I haven't got the exact lux levels in front of me, but they do drop off very significantly towards the edges of the site and are at very, very low levels around the site boundary.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes, I think that answers the question.
Councillor Hardingham, did you want to ask a question?
No.
Councillor Warboys, could you turn your mic off?
That was off.
No, I think that'll cover it, thank you.
What about the operating hours, the working hours of the company? Maybe you could just clarify that as well.
Yeah, so it is intended that Bowder is a 24-hour operation, the same as the range, and there will be a number of features in place to mitigate that. One of those, and I understand there's a kind of particular concern around the noise from HGVs. So a HGV management plan will be secured by condition, and that will include measures such as keeping radios on at night time, kind of managing arrival of HGVs and managing all of those impacts. A noise assessment has also been submitted as part of the planning application, and that's been considered with the environmental health officer, who has raised no objections.
Thank you. And can I also ask, you talked about lighting in the car park area, please correct me if I'm wrong, there isn't any landscaping to the north of the car park area. So if you're lighting up the car park, will that not spill light into the footpath area and the countryside and fields around that northern boundary?
Yeah, I think we accept that there will be a degree of light spillage associated with the necessary lighting at Gateway 14. There's also lighting along the estate roads that's required to provide luminance for drivers, but we've done as much as we can to mitigate that via the measures that I referred to previously, and to make sure that that lighting is kept as low as feasibly possible.
Councillor Elkin.
Thank you, Chair. In my ward, we have a large commercial site which has fairly regular sort of complaints about noise at night and lighting, and I just wondered, obviously there's limits to how much you can mitigate things, but will there be an easy way for the various parish councils? Is there like a liaison kind of person envisaged where if there are issues that they can easily bring them forward to you?
Yes, so both the HGV management strategy and also the construction management plan for during the construction period require a named point of contact for that parish liaison. So yes, there'll be someone available who can directly deal with complaints. Obviously, we hope that none will arise, but in the event that they do, there will be someone there to address those, yes.
Are there any further questions? I have another question. Now, as part of the original planning application for Gateway 14, there was talk of a shuttle bus from the railway station, and I also understand that the range, which is now operational, we're talking about providing their own shuttle bus, and I just wonder what the timing, whether that is already happening, and whether the range's minibus facility would be open to other employees on the site.
So if I answer the question about the shuttle bus first, so discussions have been progressing on that. It will be an electric shuttle bus, and we envisage it will come online in around mid-2026 to coincide with the opening of the Innovation Centre. It's envisaged that the EV charging for the bus will be located on the Innovation Centre plot, and that should also coincide with the opening of Bowder, if it receives approval, and also the Assam panel plot if that receives approval as well. In terms of the Rangers shuttle buses, the range is now operational, so my understanding is that those should be brought forward, should be kind of up and running now. The range have a much wider demand given the number of staff that they have on site, which is why they are providing their own bus services. There is potential for other operators to share those bus services with the range, and they've confirmed they're open to that. The travel plan coordinator will be available to kind of coordinate those requests if required.
And also any scope for sharing the shuttle bus with the community?
Thank you. So we're looking at the shuttle bus and the service it can provide. I suppose the key function of it is to ensure that people can travel sustainably to Gateway 14, but there is the potential for widening the scope of that and enabling communities to benefit from the facility as well. So we are looking at the shuttle bus really being serving the main kind of commuter times, so the morning and the evening, but also providing a lunchtime service. So we can certainly have a look at that. I think the other thing is that with the increasing numbers of people at the park, I think there is also scope longer term to look at the commercial offer of bus services in that area as well, as we have more quantum of people moving around. So I think either directly or indirectly there will be some benefit to bus services in the area.
Thank you. Councillor Overend.
Thank you. Yeah, I also have an overall site query not relating to this development. Is that appropriate to raise that now?
We'll ask it and we'll see if the people are willing to respond.
Okay, so Stowmarket Town Council referenced the omission of a controlled crossing on Gateway Boulevard, and I appreciate that connectivity is an outlined stage matter, but I just wanted to have clarity that this was a deliberate decision, that there aren't actually potential safety concerns around the need for a controlled crossing of some kind, or maybe a central refuge as a cheaper option. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's obviously outside the scope of this application. As far as I'm aware, and Mark can correct me if I'm wrong, all of the works for the wider Gateway 14 master plan have all been approved and delivered and reviewed with Suffolk County Council, and they have no safety concerns. There are a number of kind of improvements to connectivity across Gateway 14, but I don't think that controlled crossing is required.
Hi, Chair. Hi, members. My name's Mark Geddes. I'm Director of Richard Jackson's. We are the engineers for Gateway 14 and for both applicants this evening. There are, from memory, 3 uncontrolled crossing points on Gateway Boulevard. I might be wrong. There might be 4. There might be 2. There are definitely 2. I think there are 3. The numbers of trips requiring a person to make a crossing of Gateway 14 are relatively limited, because you will be able to make that choice as you enter from the west or from the east. And so you'll be on the right side of the road, hopefully, as a pedestrian. The number of trips, pedestrian-wise, and the number of trips, vehicular-wise, don't get to the threshold for a controlled crossing. So something similar to the Toucan. They just don't get to that level of trips that would reach that threshold. So it's we've provided what was agreed with Suffolk County Council that's already in place. Hopefully that helps.
Could I just come in there and say that as the plots get occupied, will there be monitoring of the both pedestrian trips, cycle trips, car trips, lorry trips, and maybe a review might be needed in the future?
Well, the travel plan and the travel plan coordinator would already be doing monitoring annually for the split, mode split of all of the trips to and from the site. So there will be that. As for a review, I mean, there's all sorts of processes that might take place, which I wouldn't want to sort of guess at now, but should there be a safety issue that becomes obvious with an accident record that is attached to it, then that would be something that could be reviewed by Suffolk County Council in their role as Highway Authority, because it will be their road by then. Then that is something that would happen, but yeah, it's not one for this evening.
Thank you. Councillor Walbers, did I see you raise your hand earlier? Would you like to come back with another question?
Yes, Chair. It just follows on from your question about employment. I wonder if you could expand a little bit on your the employment plans and any associated training to go with it. I noticed there was a sort of suggestion that we conditioned a skills and employment plan, but it's not conditioned, I don't think. At least I can't see it.
There are two conditions to do with skills and employment plans. I think the last penultimate and the pre-penultimate bullet points are something to do with employment plans.
Yeah. So, yeah, just to clarify, we're recommending conditions for a skills and employment plan related to the operational phase of the development and a skills and employment plan for the construction phase.
And did you have a further question, Councillor Walbers, about the jobs on the site that you wanted the agent to respond to?
Yeah, and associated training.
Yeah, so I think Bowder will be looking at that in further detail, obviously, should this get planning permission, but there will be skills and training delivered at the site, and obviously with the Innovation Centre hopefully coming forward shortly, there'll be a potential for that to be delivered there as well. But they will be providing a number of initiatives. Other occupiers on site have connected with local colleges, they've provided apprenticeships, they've provided kind of linkages with prison services, etc. So there's potential for all of those things. It will depend what the needs of Bowder are once they start recruiting for their facility, but that will all be covered in the plan to be submitted under condition.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from members? Thank you. So we don't have any comments from the ward members. You haven't been sent anything, have you? So I will now open the item up for debate. Members, over to you. Councillor Haddingham.
Thank you. I'll go first if no one else wants to. I think this is an excellent thing we've got here, application. I think April's done a brilliant job of giving us every answer to every question that could possibly be asked. and I'm all for it. So yes, I'm happy to propose that we agree and go ahead with our officer's recommendation.
Do we have a seconder for the proposal? Councillor Elkin? And can I just remind members that there was a discussion in our questioning about slightly tweaking the employee welfare and amenity area to also accommodate visiting truck drivers?
Chairman, I mean, I think this will happen in reality, if I'm really honest, but for the sake of the record and for completeness, I think we'd suggest that you just add a sentence onto the end of the welfare condition to include measures to ensure welfare and amenity facilities for HGV and other commercial drivers servicing the site are made available.
And are the proposer and seconder happy with that rewording? Is there anything anybody else would like to say on the motion that we have? We have a proposal. Anyone like to say their comments? So we're not a lot. I mean, I think it is a good application. It's not quite as per the original outline layout, but I think that we understand why the building's been rotated, and that there is sufficient structural landscaping around the site, despite the fact that there isn't so much on the site. It seems like a reasonable application. So if there's nobody else wants to make their views known, I will ask the governance officer to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair.
We don't need to read anything out because the proposal is as per the papers plus that slight amendment to the bullet point about welfare.
Thank you, Chair. So that vote is now open in ModGov, members. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That makes 8 votes for, so that is unanimous.
Thank you. I'm going to propose that we take a 5-minute break between the two applications. So it's 18:42. So, well, let's make it round it up. And can we be back here ready to start for 18:50? Thank you. Thank you and welcome back. We're now going to discuss item 7B, DC 2402071 at Gateway 14, land between the A1120 and A14 Stowmarket, Suffolk. And I will invite the case officer to introduce the application to committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, just to say, I have got a few slides in here that are the same as you've seen on the previous application, so I probably will, if agreeable, skip those. Yeah, this application is also for reserve matters for appearance, landscaping, layout and scale, this time for plot 1900. I'm just going to skip the next few slides. And yeah, just this is obviously slightly different. So you've got plot 2000, plot 1600 down in the eastern corner, and then 1900 is the opposite side of Starfinder Way. And then again, just looking at the illustrative master plan that was submitted at outline, just to see this plot is located centrally within the Gateway 14 development to the north of plot 3000 and within 1000. So moving on to site and constraints. So again, just the site location plan. And again, aerial, I'll just quickly flick through this because I think we know where it is. And again, just the aerials submitted with the application. And again, the constraints map. One thing just to note here is the location of that footpath isn't correct and doesn't show the diversion route. And then just briefly, would note that we have got the applicant, we have got Assam Panel, the tenant, with us today. So I'm sure they'll give an introduction about their company, but just to note that this plot and unit has also been designed to meet their needs. They manufacture sandwich panel construction materials in various design profiles, and they would manufacture on the site. So the proposal is for a mixed B2 and B8 use. The unit would generate approximately 90 full-time equivalent jobs. And also important to note that Assam Panel have been granted Freeport status as part of Freeport East. So then quickly moving on to layout, I've again here just for clarity divided the building up. So you can see red is the warehouse, so the B8 use, and the blue is B2, so the manufacturing side, and then again, that easy to see, but you've got the office component, the ancillary EG element here. So the building would measure 8,042 square metres. The total on-plot landscaping comes in at 22.3%. The building, just also note that some of the plans are orientated, not always north-facing, so I have tried to indicate the direction of north, and throughout the presentation there's some differences, but hopefully you can work out which way. So yeah, the building here is to the western boundary with the service yard, the service yard to the west of it and the car parking to the northwest. I'll cover details of the amenity space and the below ground pentane tank elsewhere in the presentation. You can see the amenity space here, and you can make out the underground pentane tank adjacent to the service yard here. We're also proposing a condition to restrict the use of the floor plate as we did on plot 2000, with the split between the B2 and the B8, giving the car parking provision, which I will also go on to. And then again, just to compare the differences between the outline master plan and the updated master plan. So you can see that the building has been relocated up to the eastern boundary, and then that's required a relocation of the service yard, and you've still got the car park towards the north. I believe it's also taking up a slightly smaller plot size, This does also have an impact on the proximity of the building to the boundaries of the site, and it's understood that these amendments are driven by the occupier's operational needs, primarily requiring or resulting the form of the building needing to be long and narrow to accommodate their lengthy production line. And then again, I'm just going to really quickly, you saw this slide last time, and then moving on to parking and electric vehicle charging. So this is the proposal that would come forward on the ground today should the application get approved. So that would provide 56 car parking spaces and 48 cycle spaces with 12 EV charging units and a further 18 spaces to be provided with the infrastructure. The permeable hard standing that you can see to the right of that has been put in essentially to future-proof the site for further car parking should the occupier change and further parking be required. In terms of the parking and why it's been calculated at 56 spaces, because you'll note in the report that that doesn't comply with the parking guidance. So ASAN panel have identified that the site will operate a free shift 24-hour day basis with a peak shift changeover requiring less than 40 car parking spaces. So this does actually exceed their requirement. And then I think we've touched obviously on the potential to use the Rangers shuttle bus and also the Gateway 14 shuttle bus. And just to show the sort of phases, so obviously, as I've said, phase 1 would come forward essentially today, and then phase 2 is the option for further car parking. I think that provides an additional 34 spaces on that hard standing. And yeah, also to justify the reduction below the car parking standards, they have looked at the TRICS database, which looks at trips from similar developments, and they've identified 4 sites with comparable ground floor areas. 2 of the sites have comparable maximum parking accumulation, so the number of vehicles parked at any given time, and 2 have lesser parking. And then I'll just move on to lorry parking. So you can see here that actually there isn't any demarcated lorry parking, albeit the service yard could provide that. And that's because there's no requirement for ASAM panel to have any HGV parking on site, as it's not how they operate. The HGVs would essentially arrive, load the product on, and then they would leave to make the delivery. And I'll come back to the storage areas further in the presentation. And again, just on cycle storage, so you've got the employee cycle stores here. You'll note that there isn't currently shown a blue area for storage and lockers, and that's mainly because I think, you know, it will determine on the internal fit out that ASAN decide. But essentially those details, and it is required to be submitted under condition 53 of the outline. So we'll be getting them we just at the present time don't know where they'll be sited within the office space. And again, we've got Sheffield stands for visitor parking at the entrance of the building. And just moving on to the amenity space. So it'd be finished with turf, wildflower, tree, shrub and hedge planting. It'd be surrounded by various types of fencing, which I'll again go on to later. And the area would have some picnic benches for employees to use. I just briefly want to cover external plant. So you've got a dust extraction system at the back of the building, air source heat pump adjacent to the amenity area and cycle store and entrance of the building. You've got a condenser unit also within that area with the air source heat pump. We've got chemical storage tanks also at the rear of the building, and a DNO substation on the edge of the car park. and then also just the electric vehicle units there. And again, the access strategy, so you can see there's 2 access points for this plot. You've got one from Starfinder Way, which is the bottom of this image, but the west of the site. So that would be purely for HGVs. And then you've got the one to the north along Gosling Avenue, just over here, which would be for cars, pedestrians and cycles. And you can see the demarcated on this plan the dropped curbs, so you can see that people could cross here and then also up here. And then moving on to scale, again, existing site plan, and here the parameters plan secured by the hybrid permission, and again, as we noted previously, condition 11 secures the building height, sorry, that should say plot 1000, not plot 2000, but at 21 metres also. And then in terms of the cut and fill strategy, so soil from the north and northwest of the site will be used to fill the south of the site to create a level site. And we're in a similar situation to plot 1600, where there is a requirement for fill, and that will be taken from the on-site borrow pit. And again, just to look at heights and levels, so you can see again that this plot is either within or below the levels that we envisaged or was secured at outline. And again, a section through the site, and again you can see the red here demarcated as the maximum AOD height of the building. And then I've just included some levels. I've tried to, hopefully you can see that this is section AA is this red one up here. So you can see the difference in levels across the site where the parking is slightly higher than the building, but very, very slightly. And then moving on to appearance. So you can see that this building has a pitched roof, and it's the first plot on the development to deviate from the barrel vaulted roof form. As we've said, obviously there is value in following design consistency, but the pitched roof form has been chosen for this building to achieve the lower profile and to accommodate the occupier's own PV-ready roofing product. And in our view, the low pitch will achieve the same general effect as the curved roof in helping to soften long-distance views of the short elevation. The proposed materials also include metal cladding and steel and aluminium windows and doors, and again would be arranged in the vertical bands with the similar colour palette. And then again, just looking at the window detail, fairly similar as we saw on 1600 in terms of the difference between the vertical flat panels around the entrance and then the trapezoidal profile panels around the rest of the building. And I will just really quickly run through these. But again, it's the same materials that we've seen on the previous plots. And so, okay, external storage. So Assam panel require an area of external storage for finished product prior to loading onto HGVs for distribution. So the materials are typically stored on pallets and wrapped in film, and you can see they've provided some images of on other sites of what this external storage might look like. Just this elevation below shows, green shows the extent of external storage on the plot, albeit just to note that it does, I don't believe it includes the storage that would take place on the permeable hard standing. So it's purely this rectangle on the service yard. They have noted that on average the stock height is around 3 metres, but you'll just note from this image, we are recommending, and it's as per their request, that this area is restricted to a height of 4 metres, and the permeable hard standing, which obviously has been designed to be multifunctional for future car parking if required, is at 2.5 metres high, given its proximity to the highway. And again, we're recommending the same external storage and container management plan condition. And then also just looking at the underground pentane tank in some more detail. So I've just highlighted it in black there to show its location below the service yard. And we've got some images provided by the applicant of this. So Assam panel production process requires the use of pentane. I'm sure they can go into more detail, but it's used as a blowing agent and it helps the substance foam up and deliver its high thermal resistance value. It is both flammable and explosive, and therefore obviously it must be stored correctly. The proposal is to bury it in a concrete pit encased in sand and topped with a concrete lid, meaning only sort of the pump and pipeline and access panel will be visible, which you can sort of see in the example image here. And just to note that the installation of the tank and the storage of pentane on site will be in full accordance with the standards. And just in terms of the floor plan here, so the length of the building is 185 metres and the depth is 42 metres. And again, with the floor plan, you can see the two-storey office attached. And then moving on to the office, as I noticed previously, the showers and lockers aren't shown on here, but obviously they are required to be provided under condition 53. And then in terms of the roof plan, you can see the PV there, and I've just noted for information the on-site consumption versus the PV generation, because obviously you can see that a significant portion of their roof is to be covered in PV panels. And just to note that the proposal is to utilise Assam Panel's own PV-ready roofing product. The proposal would also include a small gatehouse at the HGV entrance of the building. This follows similar form and scale to what we've seen on 2000 and 4000. And again, on the colours, these were informed by an environmental colour analysis. And again, all these colours have been used on previous plots, with the exception of the blue, which is Assam's corporate colour. And again, compliance with the design code, you'll note slightly different to the previous one in that they are using composite cladding. And ECG view of the entrance, and just to note that this is slightly out of date in that it shows a slightly old configuration of the staff amenity area here, but the broad elevations of the building remain the same. And again, just to quickly cover the energy and sustainability features, these are again largely what we've seen on previous plots, with a PV array of 900 kilowatt peak, and this is predicted to achieve reductions in on-site energy use by 76.4%. And again, external work finishes very similar again in terms of materials. So you've got the brindle, yellow and the grey concrete block paviours. They're proposing a grey gravel to the permeable hard standing area, and then this strip here between the hard standing and the amenity area as grasscrete. And then, as I said, just to go over the fencing, a few different proposals here. So we've got part of the requirement of the Freeport status is that the site is secure by a 2.7 metre high weld mesh fence, and that has to go, the proposal is to go all the way around the application site. The proposal also includes a 3 metre high timber acoustic fence to run along the edge of the service yard adjoining the amenity area, purely really for the benefit of the employees using the amenity area just to block out some of the noise largely from the use of the service yard. And then we've also got a 2 metre high timber hit and miss fence around the air source heat pump, just in the centre here, again, mainly for visual screening. And then lastly, a 1.2 metre high timber post and rail fence around the south and west of the amenity area, just to demarcate that area from the rest of the site. And just moving on to landscaping. So the proposed landscaping strategy is similar to what we've had on previous plots. It's predominantly around the boundary of the building, car parking and service yard, and that will act to soften the visual impact of the building. And again, the off-site BNG is provided using the northern and western structural landscaping, and that comes in at just over 10%. Oh, yeah, and also just, I think I mentioned earlier, so in accordance with the 20% condition, they're providing 22.3% of the plot as soft landscaping. And again, the structural landscaping, you can see here, this one is number 3, so it's the internal landscaping comprising of street trees and specimen planting. And just included this one mainly for context, because you can see the structural landscaping around the boundaries of the highway. Moving on to some photos. Right. So this one is taken from the intersection of Starfinder Way and Gateway Boulevard facing north. This is essentially the HGV vehicular access here. And you've got, this is also the HGV access from Starfinder Way facing northeast. And again, a bit further down Starfinder Way facing north. This is also facing northeast. You'll note there's 2 bell mouths here that were approved under the outline permission to serve this plot, but aren't required for the plot layout that's come forward. So as we've done on previous plots, it'll be subject to a non-material amendment to remove those and continue the structural landscaping in its place. And this time we're at the other end of Starfinder Way facing south, and you can see the range building on plot 4000 on the horizon there. And we're on the intersection of Starfinder Way and Gosling Avenue facing east, so the corner of the building would essentially sit behind the car parking on this corner. And again, just another one of the corner. You can see again the structural landscaping that started to mature along the boundary. And this is the car bell mouth, so view from Gosling Avenue facing southeast. And this is sort of taken from the end of the bell mouth of the site. And again, the same bell mouth facing west. So you've got Starfinder Way here, and you can just about make out, sort of, I think McDonald's is over in this direction. So again, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from members on this application? Councillor Warboys?
Thank you. Yeah, well, the question was going to be about where the Panton tank was, and your slide showed where it was. It's a very hazardous chemical. Is it necessary to have a condition about notification that this is stored on site and for relevant, for fire brigade and relevant authorities? Or
Do you want to come in, Phil?
Thank you, Chairman. I think you'll find that there's nothing from the Environment Agency or from our colleagues in the Environmental Health Team that recommend that action.
It's not a controlled substance that there has to be regulations about its use and its storage? Is it flammable, liquid or...
I think my expectation in other cases, Chairman, is that the Environment Agency would have flagged the statutory requirements and given us a note on that, and I don't think we have anything to that effect.
Okay, thank you.
Well, they've been consulted, and thank you, Philip.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Elkin, and I'll come to you next, Councillor.
Thank you. It was just one on page 54. I think it was Place Services mentioned a few concerns. They said there wasn't enough cycle parking on the site. I don't know if you wanted, there was a couple of other things as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, so specifically on cycle parking, I think they acknowledged that it was compliant with standards, but were trying to seek a further reduction in car parking with a compensatory increase in cycle parking. But, you know, we've taken the view in consultation with county highways that we don't want, we've kind of hit the lowest amount of parking that we want on that site, and they're compliant with standards. So from our perspective, that's acceptable.
Thank you. Is it okay to have another?
Do you have another secondary question?
Well, it's slightly different.
Yeah, that's fine.
So it was something that I think the economic development team had mentioned a bit of concern about the open storage at the front of the site and the screening. I'm sorry if I missed it in the presentation. I just wondered if you could explain a bit how that front open storage area was going to be screened. I think they're all concerned about the impact on the sort of innovation kind of cluster when that gets built out.
Yeah, so obviously on the site plan, the external storage area on the service yard is demarcated in a hash line, but that's not proposed to have any additional fencing around there. It's purely to demarcate the location. And taking a measurement from the edge of that storage area to the edge of the site is about 50 metres. And then obviously you've got plot 3000. At this stage, obviously we don't know what's going to come forward on 3000. So we've obviously got the 2.7 metre high fence along that boundary with landscaping. And I guess, you know, when 3000 comes forward, we'll have to make an assessment, including obviously what we've already approved. But it would probably be unreasonable of us to say there's going to be an impact on them when we don't know the layout and everything that's going to come forward on that plot at this stage. And we feel that a 50-metre buffer with the fence and the landscaping will,
Thank you. Councillor Everett.
Thank you. Yeah, I just, there's references in the report and a couple of consultees about the lack of a green roof on the cycle storage area as a missed opportunity, and I'm just wondering if that has been, fully considered, given that there's already deviation from the established form of the barrel vaulted roof, whether or not this could be another deviation and that would be acceptable as well.
I'd say it's probably a question best aimed at the applicants. Yeah, it's a proposal we've got in front of us, so for us, consistency is a key.
We'll ask the agent. Any further questions for the planning officer? If not, then I will now invite the public speakers to address the committee. And again, we don't have a parish council, we don't have an objector, we don't have a supporter, and we have the agent, Hannah Walker, supported by Emily Atack and anyone... No? Sorry, I'm just reading from my script. Hannah Walker, and maybe some of the other people may be answering questions as well. Thank you.
Good evening again, councillors. So you've heard from me earlier today regarding reserved matters for Bowder. As you've heard, the second reserved matters before you this evening is for plot 1900, and it is a unit for Asan Panel. So Asan Panel proposed to deliver a logistics and manufacturing unit on this plot, and they are a leading international manufacturer of building construction materials, including sandwich panel products for insulation purposes, panels ready for mounting of solar systems, skylights and ceiling and filling products. And they've developed a number of sustainable products with their in-house research and development activities using eco-friendly methods and offer them for use in various industries. This includes a PV-ready roofing panel, which allows solar panels to be installed on roofs without drilling into the surface, which essentially makes it easier and cheaper to install PV panels and protects the structural integrity of buildings from water ingress. And also a next-generation insulation technology known as Smart Core, which significantly improves energy efficiency and thermal performance. Assam Panel are among the top 10 companies globally in the sandwich panel industry and export to 85 countries and are currently based in Turkey. The proposed facility at Gateway 14 is their first facility in the UK, so really excited to have them on board. The proposed unit has been designed to meet their specifications, and again, if approved tonight, construction will start as soon as possible with a target completion date mid-next year. As you've heard from planning officers, Assam Panel have also been fully approved by Freeport East. So again, sustainability has been at the front of the scheme design and sustainable features have been incorporated throughout. And again, the proposals deliver significantly in excess of planning policy requirements and the requirements of the Hybrid Planning Permission, and that includes BREEAM Excellent and again EPC-A. You've seen the extent of solar panels on the roof, which is also significant. And again, the delivery of a unit for a sustainable manufacturer aligns with Gateway 14's objectives. It's also worth saying that this reserve matters is also fully in accordance with the control parameters of the outline planning permission and will deliver similar benefits to the unit for Bowder in terms of jobs. So this unit will deliver between 90 and 105 jobs. And again, a condition is secured for an employment and skills plan and will also deliver landscaping in excess of a 20% requirement, sustainable transport and a high quality building. Again, we'd like to thank officers for their support and collaboration throughout the determination of this application, and again, hope members will be able to support this scheme. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I will go to Councillor Overett to ask the question that she posed to the planning officer first.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just about the arguments behind not having a green roof on this cycle storage. Thanks.
Yeah, so we have reviewed the opportunity to provide a green roof. At the moment, that's not proposed on this plot, but we do envisage a green roof will be coming forward on the Innovation Centre. There's no requirement to deliver a green roof for the cycle store, so at the moment, it's not being proposed in this application.
Thank you. Are there any further questions of the agent? Can I just ask about your PV generation? Which we had some figures up on the slide, I can't remember what they were, but clearly the PV only generates when it's sunny, and you may want, or the tenant may want power when it's not sunny. So is there any battery storage, or is the excess that's not being used going to go straight to the grid? And therefore, if you need more power when it's not sunny, you'll be drawing from the grid.
This might be a question for Tolga, who's sat next to me, but as far as I'm aware, there is infrastructure installed, so there is the potential to deliver batteries, and the requirement will be identified as part of Assam Panel's fit-out works.
Just like to introduce yourself, that would be great, thank you.
Hi, I'm the Managing Director of Assam Panel. We haven't considered storage at the moment because there will be phases of manufacturing ramp up. So at the moment we believe the current PV installation will be enough for the shifts that we will operate, but in the future we consider to increase the number of photovoltaic cells as well as putting a storage unit, but not in the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Elkin?
Thank you. I just wanted to raise something that, because Stowmarket Town Council had asked that they said they had no objections subject to additional information being sought concerning ventilation and air quality management systems and also the end-of-life disposal policy for the EV panels. So I wondered if you could just address that question they had. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So in terms of air quality and ventilation, the building will be fitted with a ventilation system that will include filtration devices to ensure that the air quality internally meets the relevant levels. I believe that's also covered by building regulations. Yes, David's nodding, so yes, that's also covered by building regulations. In terms of the PV panels, the lifetime of a PV panel is about 25 years, so obviously at some point within the lifetime of this building they will need to be replaced. The intention is that they will be recycled in accordance with the relevant regulations, and Assam Panel are happy to commit to do that.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, so we don't have anything from the ward member, so I will now open this item up for debate. Councillor Hardingham.
Well, I'm delighted to see that there is going to be some manufacturing on Gateway 14, and I welcome this application on the whole. There have been some compromises made during the consultation process, but I think they appear to be completely acceptable, really, in the light of the benefits. So that's...
You're not making a proposal, you just made a comment, that's fine. Anyone else wish to make a comment or opinion? Councillor Hardingham.
Thank you. Another excellent application, which I'm very happy to propose that we accept. I think it's very well thought out as usual, and yeah, that's me.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Overett? And Councillor... Sorry, I'm not on my mic.
I think I'd like to second the...
I think Councillor Overett has seconded.
Actually, fine.
Did you want to make any further comments?
Well, just that, as this site has appeared, and it does actually involve hazardous chemicals, and although I'm quite confident the Environment Agency and British standards are appropriate, I'm just wondering, as other sites come forward, whether it's practical to keep an audit of what chemicals are being on site, in particular keeping the relevant authorities informed. It might not just be one chemical, but a cocktail of chemicals might prove
Is
significant.
that something that we can control by planning, or is that controlled by other bodies?
I think you're stretching the bounds of a reserved matter, Chairman. I think it's not really, that's more about use than the specifics. So I understand the point. I think ultimately it rests with bodies like the Health and Safety Executive to ensure that these things are regulated. It's not the planning authority's role to duplicate that, although I fully understand the interest in the public safety point. And from my point of view, and just to clarify on the air quality aspect, your environmental health officers have been consulted. They've reviewed the odour and air quality information provided, and they're not recommending any conditions or issues, so they're happy with it. So I'm not sure it's territory for a reserved matters application, although I understand the interest, Chairman.
Thank you. If I may just make my comment, given that we changed the condition on the application we heard earlier this evening about welfare, can we have the same one here? And is that all right with the proposer and seconder? Yeah, I too am pleased that we've got some manufacturing, and I'd like to welcome Assam to Stowmarket, and thank you for picking Stowmarket and Mid Suffolk to bring your business to the UK. It's great for the district, so I'm happy to support this application, but I just put that thing in, let's be consistent. If we put it on the other one, can we put it on this one as well? The proposer is putting a thumbs up. Are you all right with that, seconder? Does anybody else wish to make any comments or contribute to the debate in any way? If not, then I will ask the Governance Officer to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. My ModGov has gone to sleep for the night, it seems, so could we do this by show of hands, please?
So we are having the same conditions and the same condition about the welfare for the HGV drivers. maybe the Chief Planning Officer can just confirm.
Just for the sake of the record, Chairman, so we'll amend the welfare and amenity for employees condition, and we'll add to include measures to ensure welfare and amenity facilities for HGV and other commercial drivers servicing the site are made available.
Show of hands.
Yes, please, Chair members, could I have a show of hands for the recommendation for conditions, please? Thank you, Chair. That's unanimous.
Thank you. So that was 7 votes for, because we're down to 7. Right, so that brings us to the end, towards the end of our meeting. Item number 8 is just the site inspections, which do we have any requests for site inspections?
None to report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will close this meeting at 19:31. And the next meeting of Mid Suffolk Planning Committee will be on Wednesday, the 31st of July at 9:30 a.m. here in the King Edmund Chamber.